Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. A journalist at Fox Business Network today reported that attorney John Deaton let her know that there are two key decisions in the SEC versus Ripple case, and the decisions on these two key issues are imminent, as in it's quite possible that we're going to see rulings on these two key issues from the judge before this week is over, that quickly. And in fact, one of them is so important that I speculate, and I have talked about this idea before. I think it's going to indicate whether or not we see settlement in this case, whether we go the whole 9 yards, we see full adjudication, or the SEC recognizes maybe things aren't looking so good for us now. Highly consequential, and we might know within the next day or two. And then also there is a new ruling from Judge Torres in the case, and I'll just tell you this at the intro part of the video here. I don't know what's going to happen on this. I'll go through the details, of course, but I have a suspicion that the SEC is going to try to take advantage of the opportunity presented by the judge to redact as much information as possible, even if it goes beyond what they should be reasonably proposing be redacted in at least one key document. And the intent, well, that would be to prevent the public, i.e. XRP holders like you and I, from seeing key information. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And so the aforementioned Fox Business Network journalist is none other than Eleanor Terrett. And she got a bit of word from attorney John Deaton and shared the following. And she wrote this: "What are we waiting for in the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit? Two things. Number one, Judge Netburn's decision on whether the Hinman emails and documents fall under attorney-client privileges." So I'll just pause to note, make sure that we're on the same page here. What she, of course, is referencing is the emails associated with and drafts of the Ethereum free pass speech from Bill Hinman. All emails and drafts of the speech associated, that's what we're talking about here. Because you may recall that in January, I think it was January 13th, if my brain's not broken. It might be broken, though, I don't know. Not always firing on all cylinders, folks. But regardless, it's definitely in January the judge first ruled, SEC, these documents that you don't want to hand over because you're claiming privilege, they actually don't satisfy what privilege requirements would be under the deliberative process privilege. And so you actually do have to hand these over. And the SEC, of course, didn't like that. So they pushed back and they said, "Hey, Judge, we'd like you to do a reconsideration." And then in April this year, the judge came back and said, "No, you really do still have to hand these documents over." And then after failing at that point, they then made an absurd claim that now, so they're like, "Okay, fine, the deliberative process privilege, that argument didn't work out. What can we do? What can we do? Oh, attorney-client privilege." I can imagine that's how they're pulling legal approaches out of a hat, I can imagine here. And then just trying to make them fit square peg, round hole, something like that. And so they're actually claiming that Bill Hinman he's a client of his coworkers. My gosh. So he's a client of himself because he is also at the SEC, or was at the time anyway, right? So, and it's funny too, because not in like a hilarious way, but just of how absurd it is that Bill Hinman, understand that the arguments that were made back when the SEC was claiming privilege, they're making the same arguments now, but they slap the term attorney-client privilege on top of it. That's it. That's the only repackaging they did, just about. Okay, a few other little things I've been covering along the way. But in a general sense, they're pretty much making the same arguments, just calling it something else. To me, it looks like a Hail Mary. There has to be something so horrendous in these documents that it's just going to destroy the SEC's case. Probably exculpatory evidence, or else why are you fighting this hard? Because you know the judge ain't stupid. I just can't imagine the judge is going to fall for this nonsense, especially after the recent pretrial hearing. I made a video about that when it happened in the last couple weeks or so. Didn't go well for the SEC attorney, let's say. And so as a result, what's going to happen? Well, if the attorney-client privilege is found to be bogus, and I believe firmly it is bogus, and I do believe, for reasons I've been citing recently, the judge is not going to find that there's actual attorney-client privilege here, that means that those documents are going to have to be handed over. Now, there's a thing that, you know what the SEC is probably going to do? They're going to keep fighting back on this damn thing. What they could actually do is appeal to Judge Torres at that point, because there's two judges in the case, mind you. There's Judge Knepper that's been helping with a number of the rulings, but the judge who will make the final determination regarding summary judgment, the conclusion of everything, should this be fully adjudicated, that goes to Judge Torres. So it's Judge Knepper that said, no, you have to handle these privileged, allegedly privileged documents over because they're not actually privileged. So the SEC, if Judge Knepper comes back and says, hey, no, these documents, they're not attorney-client privilege, the SEC in all likelihood will go, they're going to appeal in all likelihood to Judge Torres. Judge Torres is probably going to side with Judge Knepper, and that sounds like a virtual certainty. And so that's where, at that point, when Judge Torres comes back, and this is all going to take some time, but when Judge Torres says, no, seriously, this is really not attorney-client privilege, then that starts the clock. Attorney John Deaton has said this in the past. He says, once we hit that point, it's like inside of 90 days, you're going to see settlement. So, and that's when the timer starts. So the timer hasn't started yet, but that's what we're looking at. So that's why this is such a big deal. And we might have this decision this week from Judge Knepper. And if she absolutely says, no, seriously, bro, this is definitely not attorney-client privilege, fine, they can appeal. But the writing's on the wall, folks. It really is at that point. Now, if we don't get the ruling that we're expecting here, and it's found to be attorney-client privilege, this thing's going to court, unfortunately. I don't think it's plausible. Okay, it's plausible, but not as likely that you'd see a settlement. Anything could happen, fine, I acknowledge that, but not likely at that point. And then the second thing here from Eleanor Turret, Fox Business Network journalist, she said, number 2, Judge Torres's decision on the SEC's motion to seal its opposition to John Deaton's request to file an amicus brief on the agency's expert witness, Patrick Doody. Now, John Deaton tells me both decisions are imminent and could be made by the end of the week. So we've really got some stuff coming soon. So hopefully, because I'd rather just get the news out, get this thing rolling. I hopefully, we'll see it this week. But if not, it's coming very soon. So maybe, okay, if we don't see it this week, maybe it would be the following week. Okay. But I will be patient. But I'm like everybody else too. Like, I do want this damn thing settled. It's stupid. Being an XRP holder, like, can you imagine? Because look, you're like me, I bet. Like, you jumped into crypto. You've been in here however long, whether you're new or you've been here a number of years. Some of you've been here longer than me. But I'll tell you, when I jumped in to crypto at the end of 2017, and I was so impressed by XRP because technologically it's superior, but also it's functionally useful. And that just blew my mind. I was like, oh, there's actual utility here. That's when I had my aha moment. I was like, okay, crypto's never going away. And little did I know that upon finding this cryptocurrency, the first cryptocurrency I ever found with utility, unless you're going to say, store value, Bitcoin, gold, okay, fine. But the first thing that really convinced me, my aha moment, who would have thought that would be a cryptocurrency that would get sued into oblivion by the SEC years later and would have legal implications impacting the world over? And that we'd be talking about it to this degree, and that this lawsuit it's now been going on a year and a half roughly. Who would have freaking thought? It's bonkers, isn't it? Crazy the world we live in here. But that's why I'm like you. I'm like, hopefully we can just get this damn thing rolling as quickly as possible. Now, as far as Patrick Doody, so point number 2, what Eleanor Turret was talking about here, I got a few things to say about this, and let's make sure everybody knows what's being discussed here. Patrick Doody, I love that name, Doody. Patrick Doody was hired as an SEC expert witness to write a report explaining, among other things, why XRP holders made the decision to purchase XRP. And this is important because undoubtedly he'll argue that XRP holders only purchased XRP with the expectation of being able to sell it for more in the future. And that is one of the 4 prongs of the Howey test. Because one of them would be, of course, an investment of money, but then 2 would be with the expectation of profit, right? So if people are 1, investing in XRP with their money, and then 2, with the expectation of profit, you got 2 prongs right there if you can convince the judge that this makes sense. And that's what they're hiring this expert witness to argue, undoubtedly here. And so, if the court finds this testimony compelling, that's bad for Ripple, and it's bad for XRP holders. Attorney John Deaton wrote to the court requesting to be able to respond to Patrick Doody's expert report, which we've not seen to this point, mind you. And the SEC then wrote to the court arguing that Attorney Deaton should not be able to even comment on this topic on behalf of roughly 68,000 XRP holders. Now, Ripple does want Attorney Deaton to be able to speak on this topic, of course. And Ripple's legal team have requested that the court allow their response to be filed publicly, despite the fact that the SEC has wanted to redact and seal very much of what has been written on this topic due to alleged security concerns surrounding their expert witness Patrick duty. And look, as I've said before, security concerns for expert witnesses, of course, should be taken seriously. No dispute there, but the problem here is that the SEC refuses to explain what those security concerns actually are. Okay? And so today, Judge Torres responded to Ripple's request, and she wrote the following. This is very short, so I'll read the whole thing. It's like a few sentences. It's what's on your screen right now. And this is from today. Judge Torres wrote the following. The court has reviewed defendants' response to the Securities and Exchange Commission's opposition brief and their letter regarding the sealing of that response. A defendant state that they wish to file their entire response on the public docket, but that they filed it under seal because of the court's pending ruling on the SEC's motion to seal. Accordingly, by June 23, 2022, the SEC shall file any proposed redactions to defendant's response and a letter explaining its proposal. And so there you go. Again, as you can see, Ripple wants their entire response to be public, and the judge effectively is giving the SEC an opportunity to propose redactions. But look, the last time I made a video where I was talking about the redactions proposed by the SEC, I was pointing out that Ripple's argues were saying what the SEC is proposing be redacted in those specific documents had nothing to do with any sort of the actual issue at hand, anything like that. It was completely overbroad, and we're not privy to what the specifics of those are. We may never be, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that coming from these folks again. And so I want to say also credit to James K. Filan, who is an attorney and, of course, a card-carrying member of the XRP community. And here's how he summed this all up. He wrote the following on Twitter today. The defendants requested that its response to the SEC's opposition to the Amici motion be filed publicly. Judge Torres is giving the SEC a chance to propose its own redactions to the defendant's response by June 23rd, both letters below. So I will pause to note here. I am thankful that just 2 days were given, and this isn't dragging out any further than that. She's going to allow the SEC to respond 2 days. Even that sounds generous. You're talking about redactions here. They don't have to write a bunch of stuff. Anyway, and then Attorney Filan also wrote, just explaining, this is his breakdown of what I just read to you there. He said, Judge Torres is saying that before she lets the defendants file the response publicly, the SEC gets a chance to say if there is something in the response that should not be public and why. She wants to see what the SEC wants redacted and then rule on everything at the same time. And again, we're going to know, according to Attorney John Deaton, we're going to have answers to these bigger questions very, very, very soon. So stay tuned to this because there are serious implications for the outcome of this case, whether it's full adjudication or settlement. We're going to have a strong, strong indicator very soon in all likelihood. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.